So we had the first general election debate of 2020 last night, and there are many, many takeaways. The first point I would make is it was a colossal mess. I think that that's pretty much unanimous. I don't think it matters how much of a Trump fanboy or fangirl you are, or even how much of a Biden fanboy or fangirl you are. It was a mess. It was a colossal mess. They were screaming over each other. Trump did a lot more of the screaming over than Biden did. Chris Wallace had zero control of the whole thing. He didn't assert himself in a way that was dominant or alpha. It was sort of like meekish interjections, nebbish interjections. I don't know how to talk. Interjections. So the second point I would make, though, is that Trump is behind in every poll, and really, he needed a decisive victory in the debate. And I don't think he got it. I don't think he was even close. The third point is, and this struck me throughout the night over and over, in 2016, Trump had these witty one-liners, and he really displayed humor. And at times, although it's painful to say it because we despise him, but at times, he was charming. So that was 2016. Now, he's not even funny. Like, he's just whining. He's whining nonstop. And he sounds like a Fox News grandpa. When you go back to 2016 and you see the nature of the attacks against Hillary, it was always like, you supported the Iraq War. You represent the status quo. You are the establishment. You're incredibly corrupt. You outsource the jobs. It was like a laundry list of legitimate grievances. And it made Trump sound like a populist outsider. In 2020, it's just like, Biden, you don't support law and order. You're a defender of Antifa. Oh my God, Hunter Biden and all these terrible things he did. And you could tell, like, oh, the fraudulent election. Like, he just is too much in his right-wing bubble, and he sounds like, a pissed-off grandpa. And it's not the same. The Trump magic is no longer there. So what I like to do, I try to view these debates to the extent that I can through the eyes of sort of like an undecided, independent-ish voter. And admittedly, it's hard to kind of strip away my own biases. But one of the things I like to do to try to get into that mindset, I like to ask my mom what she thought about the debate, because my mom is actually an interesting character, and in many ways, she represents like a true sort of middle America type person. She grew up in a Republican household, and so for most of her life, she was a Republican. I think that changed in 2008 when she voted for Obama because she looked at McCain and Palin, and she was like, I just can't do it. I got to vote for Obama. Now, I don't remember who she voted for in 2012. I think she voted for Obama, but I could be wrong because Mitt Romney is like the kind of Republican in terms of how he portrays himself that would kind of, get somebody like her to vote for him. So I don't know. I know in 2008 she voted for Obama. 2012, I'm not sure. 2016, she didn't vote because she looked at Hillary and she looked at Trump and she's like, I can't do it. I think they're both terrible. So I actually, I put a lot of stock in what her feelings on this kind of stuff is. And so she said, first and foremost, what we led with, which is it was just a total mess. You could barely even call it a debate. It was a joke. That was the first thing. But the second thing was she sort of went into the debate leaning in favor of voting Biden. And she came out of it going, oh, I'm definitely going to vote for Biden. Because she views Trump as just this petulant child. She said he was extra Trumpian last night. He was interrupting nonstop. And there is some segment of the population, my mom being among them, that actually cares about the decorum and the civility and the politeness and the professional presentation of it all. Like, she thinks it's embarrassing that we have the leader of the U.S. is basically like a toddler throwing a tantrum. And that's something that affects her. Whereas somebody like me, where I don't care about like the politeness level or whatever, if they're playing the game and BSing and being professional, I don't care about that stuff. In fact, I prefer having no filter. But what was interesting is that Trump was annoying me, and I'm somebody who prefers like a no filter shoot from the hip style. And he was even annoying me. So imagine how much he annoys somebody who values even a little bit the whole like professional angle of politics. And so she went into it leaning Biden. She went out going, oh, I'm definitely going to vote for Biden. She said, I think he held his own, even though he's getting interrupted every 5 seconds. And the other point she made, though, and I think this is true, and it's astute, is that the Trump people are always going to be like, yeah, Trump won. Like, they're going to think it was brilliant, it was amazing, he beat up on the fake news moderator and beat up on Biden. But that's an ever-shrinking segment of the population, and you can't win an election with 35% guaranteed. You know what I mean? So I do think that my personal takeaway is Biden did win. I don't think it was like a crushing Biden victory. I don't think he was that coherent. He was stumbling over his words in typical Biden fashion. But I do think Biden won by like a little bit, and given the fact that Trump really needed to have a decisive victory going into this, I'm almost ready to pound the gavel on this election because Biden has been up the entire time, and Trump is not closing the gap like he was with Hillary at this point in 2016. There were, somebody did the comparison for September. Hillary was only up on Trump 2 points in September in 2016. Biden's up on Trump 10 points. It might be time to pound the gavel, dude. I'm saying it's an 80% chance as of this moment that Biden wins the election. But admittedly, it's going to be a mess because who knows what's going to happen if Trump is going to try to refuse to leave or whatever. But let me give you some more of the actual polling data because I think this is important. So the CBS poll, get this, I love this fact. 69%, nice, who were watching this were annoyed by it. 69% who watched the debate were annoyed by it. They were like, this is obnoxious. There's a group of 17% that felt, and I quote, informed. And I would like to know who the hell they are because we need to lock them up. CBS again, 48% say Biden won, 41% say Trump won. This is actually the best poll for Trump because you could argue just like people were totally unmoved going into it because that's about what the national polls are. Now, here's an interesting fact. Biden surged in the betting market to 58%. So I think this is an indication that people were kind of waiting to see, okay, if he can't string together a coherent sentence and he shits himself on stage, Trump is going to win. He didn't shit himself on stage, and he had coherent sentences. So, it kind of was like a low bar for Biden going into it, right? Everybody expected Trump to win. At least everybody I saw, that's not exactly what happened. CNN, 60% say Biden won, 28% say Trump won. Data for Progress, 51% say Biden won, 39% say Trump won, 10% unsure. Here's another important one. More likely to vote for Biden after the debate, 32%. More likely to vote for Trump after the debate, 11%. Now, the asterisk and the caveat at the end of this discussion is pretty straightforward. All of like the snap polls after the first debate in 2016 showed Hillary winning, and in fact, Hillary had an even bigger margin of victory against Trump in the snap polls than Biden has against Trump in the snap polls. So, it's very, you can certainly walk away from this saying, what's the methodology in the polling? Like, are you talking to all Americans? Because then that is going to be skewed more pro-Biden, but that doesn't necessarily affect the election. Are you talking all registered voters? Because again, that'll skew Biden, but not necessarily be what the election is going to be like. They should be talking to only likely voters. Likely voters. But I don't know if they did. And I reckon it would be a little tighter once you get to that group. Oh, and I don't know if I told you this number, but this is actually maybe the biggest takeaway. There was a CNN focus group, and after the debate, about 90% of the people said nobody won. Nobody won. Presumably because they look like petulant children who were yelling at each other the entire time. So You know, what Corin said to me was interesting. Corin said, like, what did you expect? Did you not expect it to be like a complete and utter mess? Because obviously it was going to be a complete and utter mess. He has a point. You know, I guess what I would say is I didn't necessarily expect the endless stream of interruptions. Like, I expected it to be a mess, but I expected it to be civil enough where people could get sentences out. Like, for Christ's sake, I debated Charlie Kirk, and him and I were letting each other finish sentences, but the two people who were trying to be the leader of the free world can't do that. It is a little mind-boggling, but anyway, that's our first debate. A common sentiment that I'm hearing from people is, I'm definitely not watching the second one. I've now heard that multiple times, that there's no way I'm watching the second one. Well, that's why I'm here. I'm going to watch it for you, clip out the important parts, and tell you what's going on. So, you know, I got to be good for something, right?